The night was thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth and the distant whisper of something unseen. Shifting beyond the veil of trees that loomed high like silent sentinels, guarding the threshold between the known and the unknown, she moved through the undergrowth, her breath ragged, her limbs weary, her heart a drum pounding in a rhythm too wild, too frantic, too desperate to be tamed by reason or sense. The air clung to her skin heavy with the weight of something ancient, something waiting, something that had been watching for far too long, and now at last it had reached for her. With unseen fingers, with unseen intent, with a hunger that could not be named nor denied. She had not meant to harm him, she had not even realized he was there, until the heat of his presence pressed against her, the scent of him raw and rich, and filled with something she could not place, something that called to her in a way she did not understand. And when she had turned, when she had seen him standing there watching her with eyes that glowed like embers in the deep of night, something inside her had risen sharp and sudden, a force beyond her control, beyond her will, beyond anything she had ever known. Her claws had struck before thought, before hesitation, before she could stop herself, before she could even ask herself why. His back had yielded to her touch, his flesh parting beneath the force of her attack, the warmth of his blood spilling over her fingers, over her arms, over the ground beneath them. And for a moment, just a moment, the world had stilled, the night had held its breath, and she had felt something shift, something break, something that was not bone nor sinew nor skin, but something far deeper, something woven into the very fabric of her being, the very threads of her soul. And she had gasped, not from horror, not from regret, but from the sudden and terrible realization that the moment his blood had touched her, the moment it had sunk into her skin, into her own veins, into the very marrow of her existence, she had felt the weight that had clung to her for so long lift. She had felt the invisible chains that had bound her to a fate she could not escape begin to unravel, begin to dissolve, begin to fall away into the darkness that had been waiting just beyond the edge of sight. She had been dying, she had known it in the marrow of her bones, in the depths of her mind. In the slow withering of her spirit, she had felt death's breath on her skin, felt its fingers brushing against the edges of her soul, a presence that had clung to her since the day she had been cursed, since the day she had been marked for an end that was meant to be inevitable. But now, as she stared down at the one she had wounded, the one who had not moved, who had not even cried out at her attack, she felt the truth settle into her like a second heartbeat, like a whisper that had been waiting for her to hear it all along. His blood had broken the curse, his blood had unraveled the fate that had been set upon her, his blood had torn her from the grip of death itself, and she did not know why, she did not understand what it meant. She only knew that she was breathing, and for the first time in so very long, she did not feel the cold shadow of the end lingering just beyond the reach of the light. She did not feel the weight of inevitability pressing down on her like a cage without a key. And she did not know if she should weep, or if she should run, or if she should stay and wait for him to speak, for him to explain, for him to tell her what it was that had just happened between them. He lifted his head, his eyes still burning with that strange unreadable fire, and he smiled, and she knew then that this was only the beginning. She did not move, she could not move as he rose to his feet, his wounds sealing as though time itself obeyed his will, his blood still warm on her skin, as though it had claimed her as his own, as though the moment she had taken from him she had also given something in return. And when he stepped forward, she felt a pull, an invisible tether tying them together, something far stronger than fate, far stronger than the curse that had once held her. She did not know what he was, she did not know if he was man, or something more, something ancient, something that had waited just as long as the darkness that had clung to her. You were never meant to die. His voice was soft, yet filled with something she could not name, something vast and infinite, and filled with knowing. And when he reached out his hand, when his fingers brushed against her cheek, she felt the last of the sickness, the last of the decay that had been woven into her very being vanish like mist in the morning sun. "What am I?" she whispered, her voice barely more than breath. His smile did not falter, his gaze did not waver, and when he spoke, his words wrapped around her like a promise, like a prophecy, like the beginning of something neither of them could yet comprehend. "You are mine." And with those words the world around them changed. The trees Thou the earth trembled, the stars above flickered as though bearing witness to something long awaited. And she understood then that she had been given a choice, that she had been given a fate that was no longer bound by death, that she was no longer at the mercy of forces beyond her understanding. She reached for his hand, she did not know why, she only knew that she had to, and as their fingers met, as his warmth enveloped her own, she felt it truly for the first time, the power, the purpose, the truth of what had always been waiting. She had torn him open, and in doing so she had set them both free.